Polls are crazy. They come and they go. You can't trust some, you can trust others. They get some people really excited and others, they really hate them. And to other groups, they will attack the pollsters, and other times they will praise the pollsters. The reality is we've seen over time in politics in North America over the past 10 years, polls are just that. They're polls. They're sometimes wrong, sometimes right, sometimes way off, sometimes dead on the money. They're weird, they're odd, and all they do is capture a snapshot in time, and you really can't live or die by them. However, excitement was brewing with the Liberals last night. Hope was on the horizon for others, as many have been clinging to Carney, hoping and praying that he wins the leadership race for the Liberals, because they believe he is the only way to defeat Pierre Poilievre. He's the only one who knows about the economy. He's the only one who can bring Canada back. He's the only one who can overturn Trudeau's disastrous policies, even though he was behind each and every decision of fiscal policy of this government. So naturally, ECOS came out, released their latest poll last night, and baby, oh baby, did the Liberals ever close the gap within 7 points based on this poll? And you first look at it, you're just like, whoa, if Carney gets leadership, that Liberal bump is real. This could be very interesting. What is going to happen? And it was very natural. The conservative side started attacking the polls, started attacking the pollster, started discrediting it because it didn't display what they wanted to see. Or did it? Was there legitimacy towards the concerns and gripes that they had about the specific poll? I was kind of looking at it, and I didn't want people to take the same approach to the Liberal side of poll says something that you don't like, then you're going to attack the pollster. Never been a fan of that. And I didn't want to see that happen now. So decided to dig into it a little bit. So this was the poll. Conservatives at 39%, Liberals at 32%. And when modeled out into ridings, it really holds the Conservatives to a very, very small minority, which would make things very interesting and open up the opportunity to form a coalition government to go against the Conservatives if that situation were to happen. And don't you know it? The Liberals were stoked, lefties were pumped, and leftist creator JB Poli-Sci on TikTok made sure to not waste any time and announce this to all his followers, getting them pumped up.
Are now within 7 points of Pierre Poilievre's Conservative Party, and when we factor in the margin of error, they are under 5. Here is the results of the poll from ECOS. ECOS is probably one of the more reputable pollsters in Canada. They did a poll from January 17th to January 21st, notably during the Trump inauguration, and it puts the Liberals at 32% to the Conservatives 39%, and the New Democrats are sitting at 14%. There is a margin of error of 3.2, which means when we factor in the best possible case scenario for the Liberals, it puts them within 4 points. This is the closest the Liberals have been to the Conservatives since Pierre Poilievre has ascended into the leadership, and this is without a leader, I'll remind you. The Liberals currently don't have a leader, and they're within 5 points of Pierre's Conservatives. This is a poll that happened after we saw a lot of the bullshit from Donald Trump and Elon Musk in the United States. Remember, the last ECOS poll put the Conservatives almost 30 points ahead of the federal Liberals. And over the course of a month, because ECOS polls monthly, they've recouped that and are now within shooting distance of the Conservatives.
As he said, it came from a very reputable source, ECOS. This is who did the poll. This is the poll he was referring to. And when he said it was a very reputable source, I had to very much check this out. When he says it's a reputable source, trusted poll here in Canada, is it the same poll, same company whose president said this? Frank Graves saying a real conservative option is a healthy counterbalance in a healthy democracy. Pierre Poilievre is an acolyte of authoritarian populism. This is never healthy. You are on notice, going to make sure you are never going to lead my country. I don't make idle threats. And he just wrote that back in 2022. So is this the same poll you're talking about? That is very reputable. Whose president came out and said this. And I would totally make the same statement about the Angus Reid polls. When he came out taking a side on a political issue, I was like, ooh, not a good look. You shouldn't be doing that, especially if you're running a polling firm, because it really takes away from your credibility. Whether you're right or wrong, it doesn't really matter. And this is the same situation that we're seeing here, Frank Graves. A whole firestorm was created over this at the time. He's since deleted this post. But this is the ECOS. This is who created this poll. And this is who the left is getting very fired up about, was the results of this one poll. Which, you know, if anything about polls, you shouldn't take one poll as the factual truth. But this is what they're doing with this one. If you compare the ECOS poll to the other polls, this is where you get. Everyone's kind of here in the middle. Angus Reid off to the left a little bit. Main Street off to the right. Palace Data a little further out, and ECOS, woohoo, smoking just out of nowhere, complete outlier. How can you possibly trust this? They are so far out compared to the rest of the pollsters that you almost have to ask. You combine what that statement made 3 years ago from the president of this polling firm, and you map it to how their poll compares to the rest with that cluster that's in there, and they're way out. In this case, right field. How can you trust them? And I'll be fair. I will be fair. This was conducted on January 18th, and everything else, aside from Nanos research, was conducted before Mark Carney went on The Daily Show, which was a decent cultural shift here in Canada when it comes to people's belief and understanding and how they view the Liberal Party. Was as soon as Carney went on that show, even though he wasn't the leader, and I love that's, they love to point that out, oh, Liberals are without a leader. There's a very clear head and shoulders leader in that race right now, and it's Carney, and people are assuming it's going to be Carney, and people are thinking Carney for the Liberals. So when they are answering these two polls, they're thinking Carney. That's what they're thinking. They're not thinking Freeland. They're not thinking Trudeau. They're thinking Carney's leading, and they'd choose Carney or Poilievre only because of how well he performed in that Daily Show interview. That was a big moment for them, and that's something to keep in mind. So I have to take that into account when I see these polls. JB Poli-Sci want to talk about, the Trump inauguration, yada, yada, yada. I could see that having some type of an impact, but I think the Daily Show had a lot more of an impact than we realized it did. So I will be fair there, but still, the Nanos research poll is dead in the middle with the rest of them, whereas ECOS is way out into right field. What is happening there? I am curious though, as more polls come in, will they start surrounding themselves with ECOS research? Or will they still be kind of here in the center? We'll see. I'm curious. David Coletto, who's been working on the Abacus data poll, said he's interviewed 500 people. And he said this: I've completed 500 interviews in our latest Abacus data survey, mostly in Ontario, and I'm not seeing any substantial closing of the gap between the CPC and the LPC. They're not really seeing it, which aligns more with the Nanos poll. So could ECOS be getting caught up in more tribalism and masking their nose for scientific data? I guess we'll see. We'll see here. But the reality is this. Politics and people are very fickle. Polls will come, polls will go. The left will have fun, the right will have fun. People will cheer on their side, and others will boo the other. It's just how it's going to go. Polls and snapshots of time, they're interesting pieces of data to look at for that period of time, but you move on and you wait to see as more polls come in. That's the key here. ECOS at this point, a lot of conservatives will say that they are illegitimate, can't take them seriously, remove them from the polling pool altogether, is how they view it. And the left feels that way about Angus Reid. The reality is that's why we have a lot of different polling firms, to see what everyone's saying, getting an aggregate. And that's why I really appreciate Polling Canada and 338 Canada, where they pull the aggregate of all the polls and get more of a closer view, a more accurate view of what the polls are saying, and giving us a more informed, well-rounded perspective of what people are feeling, what they're thinking, and what their vote intentions are. My only advice is don't get too excited, don't get too down. We'll see what happens. But for now, we'll see these more polls come in, and we'll see if that Liberal bump is coming, if people are really excited about Carney, and if so, what will that mean for Poilievre and his Conservative Party to respond? Have yourselves a good one. I'm out.